Hello, good afternoon to you all, our cherished participants, viewers from across Ghana and beyond. You are welcome to our CDAT HR Digest episode 118. Today, we are sharing with you on the topic the role of HR in crisis management. As you're already aware, this is what we've been doing for many weeks, many months, maybe over the last about 2 years. Every Sunday, we try as much as possible to bring your way a topic in the HR space, not only for HR personnel, but or HR professionals, but for all professionals, business owners, managers, HR professionals, etc. And like I said, today's edition we are going to discuss the role of HR in crisis management. As you're already aware, this program is brought to you by Sedat Consult. Sedat Consult um, is into various HR consulting services. In as we progress, we would share some of the activities that you can look at when you think about Sedat Consults. Today, I have on the call with me Vera. Unfortunately, we could not get Mr. Suman to join the session today. It was an emergency and he had to attend to it. So I have on the call with me Vera, who is also in the HR space and has done so much in the HR space. So, Vera, if you can hear me, kindly introduce yourself to our panel. You do it better than myself. So, kindly introduce yourself to the panel. Meanwhile, you
Kojo,
are
well,
welcome.
thank you very much, Kojo. It's nice to be on set with you, so to speak.
Yeah.
I wish I want to take the opportunity to say hello to your cherished listeners or to our cherished listeners, because by and large I'm part of Sedat Consult in so many ways. Um, I have been off the scene for a while, but I'm happy to be back this afternoon, and I believe that we are going to have a very wonderful learning time. Now, I have been in HR for the last, I would say, 12 years and counting. I have led HR. I'm currently assisting the director for HR in an education space. I've gone through the various industries. I've gone through automobile. I've been through the construction field, so real estate particularly. I've been through the mining field. And so let's see what God will have us do. I know it was a short notice, but we'll try to deliver um, as Sadat is known for, right? So just a warm welcome to all our cherished listeners. Tighten your seatbelts. Uh,
Yeah,
Shout out to friends and family. Let them join us and let's have some fun learning. Thank you, Kojo.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Vera. That was a good one. I'm sure our participants are really expectant. Meanwhile, I have Sunny Dali on the call. He says, "Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Sunny Dali, and every other person that is connected." So we go straight into our discussion. As you're already aware, today we crisis management is no longer um, something that you want to put on the shelf or put in the shelf and just go about your business as usual. From global pandemics and cyber threats to operational disruptions and reputational risk, organizations are constantly navigating uncertain waters. And so, as you're already aware, crises do not even announce their arrival. But when they come, they test the resilience, the preparedness, the
Yes.
leadership of organization. When
Okay.
they,
I don't
these
know
people
if it
leave.
is my line, but you seem to be breaking really badly.
Oh wow!
Yes.
I guess
Can
it's
you hear
the
me
net.
very clearly
Can you
and
hear me?
stable?
Yes, I can hear
Yes.
you very well clearly.
Okay. Right. Please carry
If
on.
any of our if any of our participants can also confirm same, because I can hear you very well.
Okay.
Is it better?
Let's try it again.
Okay, all right. So I don't know where you missed me or where you even heard, but I was basically saying that crises do not announce their arrival, but usually when they
Mm-hmm.
happen, they will test the resilience, the preparedness, the leadership of organizations when they least, expect it. And it's at the heart of every effective response. At the heart of every effective response lies one critical function, and that's the human resources department. So now HR is no longer just a support role in crisis. It's a strategic partner guiding people through uncertainty, preserving culture amid the chaos, and enabling organizations to emerge, stronger. One of the key case study that we may use in our conversation today is COVID-19. So that sets the tone for everyone to basically to flow with us in our conversation of crisis management. So don't look at some humongous, conversation. Just think about COVID. It was a crisis. It was something that we all didn't expect, and then boom, there was COVID. So our
Mm-hmm.
conversation today is basically on crisis management, and for
Yeah.
every good organization, you should have put in place a risk management, to identify the various risks in your company, anticipating risk and what you would do when all of these risks happen. But in crisis management, we are talking about when we have found ourselves in the crisis, how do we manage it so that there can be business continuity? So, Vera,
Right.
without much ado, I want us to go into our first question. What role does HR play in preparing a crisis management plan? And how often
Right.
should such plans be updated?
Right. Even before I zoom into that, let me just give a typical example of
Mm,
um, what the Ghanaian community has grown to even accept. Time was it that when you sold an insurance policy on funeral to somebody, it was like, oh no, are you trying to make me plan for my funeral or make me plan for the death of my parents? But now it's become the common thing because that is a form of crisis that hits you without you even probably expecting it. It doesn't matter how long the person has been sick. And so that has become something that's accepted. So, like you started off, basically, these are things that organizations have come to accept and know that crisis hit. And one typical one, like you mentioned, was COVID. And so, yes, we accept, we expect all manner of other crises, but COVID was one that took us off our feet. And HR professionals at some point were found wanting because probably most of them or most of us didn't have a plan in place. So it's important that HR, these are things that HR leads in organizations. It doesn't matter whether it's impacting the employee, it's impacting the organizational, the business itself, or it's impacting the culture of the organization or reputation. HR is expected to lead such crisis. And so it will span all manner of things. It will span from conflict, workplace conflict, from employee complaints, from policy violations, organizational change issues. We're talking about redundancy, restructuring. All of those things are crises that happen, and HR is expected to lead such crisis. Now, how does HR lead? One of the things that HR needs to do is to ensure that the organization has a policy in place. How do we approach a crisis when it hits? Because, like we have already established, crisis will not inform you that I am coming. It just appears at your doorstep. So what do we do when such things happen? And so one of the things that HR will do is that to ensure that there is a team in place, there is a communication line in place, there is probably a crisis management team in place, so that employees, there's a communication to the employees. So employees know that when this happens, what do we do? When a crisis hits, where do we go? Who do we report to first? Then it's
mm,
reported to, assuming that it's reported to HR or it's reported to the crisis management team, they pick it up from
mm,
there. One of the key things that HR will do is to investigate and find out the real facts of the case and what is actually happening. Because if HR does
mm,
not go onto the ground and get the real truth and facts of the matter, there's a lot that will be coming in, information that will be coming in that will take the organization off their feet. And that's going to be very
mm,
harmful to how things are handled. So these are some of
mm,
the steps that HR can take to ensure that when crisis hits, they are ready to handle it. So first of all, you have some form of guidance policy in place. You have a team in
mm,
place that would sit around to ensure that whatever needs to be done is done. You have
mm,
communication to employees, some form of training to know that when this happens, this is what you must do. This is who you must
mm,
speak to. This is the department head you should talk to, so on and so forth.
mm.
I don't know if I have answered every aspect of that question you just asked, but you
Yes,
can. Uh,
the last part is on how often should the plan be updated. This is something you do and then you just leave it there. You never come back to it. How often should that be
right.
updated?
Absolutely not. Usually, when you have a policy, in that policy or guideline, you would have a period within which you want to review it. If you say you
Mm,
want to review it every 2 years or every year, so be it.
mm,
But then again, it doesn't mean that if crisis hits or then there's the need to revise it, you say because the
mm,
time that you indicated in the policy has not, um, would I say, it's not up, and so you will not review it. If it is
mm,
critical that it is reviewed before the time that was stipulated in the policy, then of course,
mm.
a meeting will have to be had, and then that policy will have to be revised. Yes, because
Absolutely.
as we go along, what happens is that as we manage crisis on a day-to-day or as they happen basis, we learn a lot and we realize that there might be a gap in the policy that has not been handled, and so there's the need to
Absolutely.
revise it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, our resource person has mentioned clearly to us. So, definitely, there is the need to revise this policy.
Yeah.
Another period that we can take advantage of to revise our policies when any significant changes, organizational changes, or crisis event occurs. So, for example, you have a policy around for example, where your system, your IT system has been hacked. You have a policy around it in terms of that. How do you manage it and all of that? But when the incident happens, it gives you an opportunity to go back into your policy and check where the loopholes are so that you can, make amendments and all of that. Sometimes to
Absolutely.
regular drills and tabletop exercises help to also test and refine, these plans. So when you have regular
Yeah.
drills, simulation sessions, it can help you to now test and also refine these plans. Now, someone would
Absolutely.
also want to know that, Vera, how can HR collaborate with other, departments? Is it just an HR thing? Of course, it's the people focused area, but is it just HR working alone, or we're supposed to collaborate with other departments? So, how do we collaborate with other departments to ensure that we have a coordinated response during a crisis?
Right. That is why we, right from the topic of the question, it said is HR led. It doesn't mean that
Hmm,
HR is going to play every role in solving the crisis. That is why I
hmm,
also mentioned earlier that it's important to have a crisis management team on standby. So
absolutely,
this crisis
absolutely.
management team will be made up of various people identified from different operational areas within the organization. And
Mm,
so there is the representative of management. And then in a
mhm,
unionized organization, you might even want to have employee representative. Even if
mm,
it wasn't unionized, then there still have to be some kind of employee representative in there so that all areas of the organization is covered. So it's important that you
mm,
have a crisis management team on established so that it has the various functional areas. And so it's a cross-functional thing. It's not just HR. HR leads it, make sure policy is available, make sure that people
mm.
understand it, and so on and so forth. Make sure that resources can be available when they need it. But all other aspects of the organization needs to be involved.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are looking at the various departments, and I like the response you gave. The fact that we are supposed to have something like a crisis response task force or a team
Right.
that are meeting regularly to have conversations around this, and that is really key.
Exactly.
So HR, don't just take this whole thing upon yourself, and then you want to handle everything yourself.
Champion
No,
it all by
collaborate with,
yourself.
absolutely, collaborate with other team members, because if you don't do that in the midst of the crisis, there will be a lot of challenges. Just imagine that there's a cyber attack, or like the COVID situation, and you are leading this alone, no collaboration. You will be so tired. You go through a lot of challenges. So it's important that we collaborate with other people to
Yeah,
handle crisis situation. Then Vera,
absolutely.
please tell us,
Yeah.
what's our most critical role during the first 24 to 48 hours of a crisis, at our workplaces. The
Right.
first 24 to 48 hours, what should we do?
Yes. Right. So, as HR, once information reaches you that some crisis has hit, one of the things you want to do is to assess the situation.
Hmm,
What has exactly happened? What really caused it? I mean, not going into real detail, but whatever eyewitnesses have to provide, you take that. And then you ensure, first of all, ensure safety of the employees. That's the next thing to do. Once you have seen what has happened, is it fire? Is it rumor that is causing people to be agitated? First of all, you make sure that you have assessed the situation, and then you ensure the safety of the employees. Now,
hmm,
beyond once you have done all of this, then there needs to be communication. You need to
hmm,
quickly communicate to employees or the community, so to speak, to say this
hmm,
is what has happened, this is what management would do, A, B, and C, and we want
hmm.
everybody to keep calm, and so this under
Absolutely,
control. Now you need to
absolutely,
activate your crisis management plan. That is where
absolutely.
you activate the plan that you have already developed and have in place. Then you
Hmm,
activate it. And
hmm,
then, of course, once you go through all of this process, you identify those employees that have been hardest hit, and they'll definitely
hmm.
need support. There are
Absolutely.
others who may not have been hardest hit, but they still need support because they have witnessed something. They have witnessed their colleagues go through a situation, and they are equally
Hmm,
traumatized. So you might end up having to do different kinds of support, providing different kind of support for different category of
hmm,
employees who suffered from the crisis differently. So
hmm.
basically, these are some of the things that you would want to do immediately within the first 24 hours when you identify that a crisis has hit.
Thank you so much, Vera. Viewers, it's important to know that, just like Vera said, in situations like this, as HR, you need to fully know what is happening or what has happened. Because one of the things that is key is honest communication. Vera spoke so much about communication, but if the communication is not an honest one, whatever information you are communicating out there has some lapses in there, you create more
Mm.
problems for your employees. So, like he said, it's important that you investigate what crisis has happened, get
Yeah,
all the full details, and communicate
yeah,
honestly to the people. In circumstances like this,
exactly.
you cannot be lying to the employees. I
Absolutely not.
remember in one of the places that I worked, we had employees that are from the, if you like, the blue collar employees. So we lost an employee. This employee was using a vehicle, and I think it was a heart attack. And so he drove into something, and then he passed. you know
Right.
and within his circle, definitely he has many other employees that he works with, all of them, drivers, operators, and all of that. In situation like this, HR must immediately communicate within the first 24 to 48 hours, because then there's a lot of information on the floor, what is happening, what happened to him, all of those kind of things. If you don't
Yeah.
communicate, it creates a lot of tension within the environment. So, like she said, communication is key. All right.
It's
So
key.
moving on, Vera, how should we are talking about communication, and when there is communication, sometimes there can be misinformation as well. So, how should HR handle misinformation and communication gaps among employees during crisis?
So, one of the things HR needs to do, which is why the first thing you do is to assess the situation, investigate.
Mm,
At the point of investigation, there's so much information that may be thrown at you that because you are not present there, it's difficult to probably decipher which is which. But
mm,
you need to get employees who are witnesses to
mm,
be able to provide you with what they have seen. That is why you see that when an accident happens, sometimes when media personnel get on the ground, they'll say the eyewitness account because they saw
absolutely.
for real what happened.
Mm,
And
mm,
so, as long as at that point this person has witnessed it, that person's account becomes your truth at that moment. And so, whilst
mm,
you are communicating that, you need to be careful to inform employees that this is information you've had at hand. However, further
absolutely.
investigation is ongoing so that whatever is truth in the matter will be brought to force, so that it won't be that HR came to say ABCD and didn't even know the fact of the matter because you were not there. And so you cannot say emphatically that what the person is saying to you is what it is. I'll give you a typical
Mm,
example where um, a place I've worked before, the entire building caught fire. Okay. And so there were
mhm,
speculations of what must have started the fire. Yes, some
mhm,
people said, it came from the source of the power. Others thought that it came from faulty, uh, what do you call it, cabling, and so on and so forth.
mm,
It was cleaners who just came in cleaning and just saw fire, started from the AC, and so nobody really knows it. But at that point, there were so many things being said. And this is a situation where HR does not have expertise there. Even the organization,
yeah.
as it were, does not have expertise there. And so we'll have to rely on people like fire service to tell us exactly what went on. And so at that point,
Mm,
all you can say is that, yes, fire has happened. This office and that office has been gutted. But then again, the cause of it is unknown. And so once investigations are over and whatever caused it is known, it will be communicated. So don't say something you do not know. Yeah, just say the facts of the case as it is at the point and ensure to
mm.
leave room for you to come back and make, corrections or to provide the truth as it were, as it's investigated and found out. Yeah.
Absolutely. That is really key. Remember, we are talking about um, what HR must do in handling misinformation and communication gaps
Mm,
during crisis. I also want to share some few examples. You know, in one of the companies that I worked, I was actually with Sanlam Insurance at some point. So Sanlam had acquired Saham Insurance. Now, just few years down the line, Sanlam was moving into a merger with Allianz. Now, like I said, just few years down the line after acquiring Saham Insurance. So even in terms of your um, regularizing your operations, coming up with all sort of things, you were still in the process, especially for the Ghana office. Then, I mean, the bit about branding and all of that, we're still in the process. Then Sanlam Global goes into a merger with Allianz. Now, in a situation like this, that's crisis because remember you are looking at the people side as well. So immediately, some employees become agitated. Some employees begin to because Allianz at the time they were in Ghana, Sanlam was also in Ghana. So if there is going to be a merger, definitely some people may have to lose their jobs and all of that. So there were a lot of rumors on the floor.
Mm.
Um, so if they are coming, is it the next 1 month? Is it the next 2 months? Do I need to begin looking for job? Because everybody is
Mm-hmm.
thinking about job security. So already there could be a lot of information, on the floor. So just like Vera said, there has to be communication, and I want to say that there has to be a designated spokesperson who is speaking to all employees so that we can avoid mixed messages. This one is saying this one is saying that. So in an instance like that, we should not allow everyone to be communicating to our employees. There should be a centralized point where information is coming from, information is being shared, so that we are all having one voice, we are all having one message. HR is not saying that we are all assembling at this point, and finance is telling the people assemble at the other point. There should be a centralized communication. And so I remember in that instant, HR led the communication. Of course, it was a partnership, and the MD of the business immediately had a Teams call for all employees, and a lot of issues were clarified. In situations like this, you allow people to ask questions, and then you respond to all of their questions. And I remember
Yeah.
when we were done with the meeting, one of the things that I clearly remember today because of that meeting is the fact that we were told that yes, there is a measure, it is going to take effect from after about 18 months. So the effect is not immediate. There are a lot of background work that are supposed to be done, and
Yeah.
the measure will take effect properly on the ground after about 18
Mm.
months. That gave employees a lot of calmness and all of
Comfort.
that,
Yeah.
comforts, and that's really key. All right, so we are going to go on a commercial break. We want to take a breather, and then when we
Okay.
come back, we will take more questions. Zakaria Salamat, we see you. Thank you so much for joining. All right, so let's take a breather. Breathe in, all right, you're welcome back to our session on crisis management, specifically the role of HR in crisis management. We've taken a lot of questions. Vera has done justice to all these questions. Um, there are just a few more questions that we are going to take, but let me recognize some of our participants. So I have Godana Dako. Godana says, good afternoon. I'm Godana from Kumasi. Thank you so much for joining. I have Josephine connected. Josephine says, Josephine Botti from Dodoa, learning as always. Thanks to that. I have Elizabeth Asari here as well. She says, great insights as always. Thank you, resource persons, and said that. All right, so let's proceed. Vera, We'll take our next question.
Right,
So
right,
how
sure.
can HR balance empathy with enforcing difficult policies during crisis, like layoffs or organizational restructuring? I think I spoke about one, but especially for layoffs. So how do we balance empathy with enforcing difficult policies? There are some difficult policies that must be taken during such times, you know. So how do we balance empathy with these difficult policies during crisis, especially layoffs or organizational restructuring?
Yeah. At the end of the day, with all that may have transpired, with crisis that may have hit, lives will be affected. The organization itself would definitely be affected in one way or the other. So you are juggling both, lives, and they are juggling the sustainability of the business and how and what can restore back. So at the end of the day, really and truly, you have to acknowledge the emotions within the community. And I'll give a
True.
typical example where I once had a situation where we had a very fatal accident on site. It led to the death of one of the employees. And one of the things that at the end of the day, as HR thought was important to do, which is providing resources, we'll get to that, was to get clinical psychologists to also
Mm,
work with employees who have been hardest hit and even those who were just kind of hearing of it to start with. But
mm.
I recall one of the functional leaders being vehemently against doing any such thing because, as far
Wow.
as he was concerned, yes, as far as he was concerned, these are adults. It's an accident. It has happened. They should be able to deal with it. Why should the organization spend money to go and bring in clinical psychologists and so on and so forth? It was a real battle. But eventually, as I prepared a paper and laid it with executive, they found the need to do that. And so, yes, we had support for such employees. But the first thing is that, yes, acknowledge emotions. It doesn't matter what has
Yeah.
happened. There are people at different levels of emotional, would I say, ability. And so each one
Yeah.
of them would need some form of support, whichever way it is. And then you have to show that you understand that this situation has occurred, but it's not the end of life for anyone impacted. Assuming it's a redundancy, there are those who are going to lose their job, and so they are not
Mm,
sure what next. And so these are some of
yeah.
the resources I'm talking about that you may have to bring in. Still clinical psychologists. Sometimes you have to
Mm,
come in financial investment advisors to help them so that whatever package they are getting, they know what to do with it and how to proceed. There are people who have been laid off and they are better off now than they were if they were still in the organization. But it all depends on
true.
how they are prepared and how their emotions are handled and
Yeah.
supported to kind of accept what has happened. So yes,
Yeah.
you have a policy you're supposed to implement, but put that human face to it. Make sure that
Very
you are
true.
doing it, not breaking the organization or breaking the human being, so that each,
Mm,
there'll be a win-win situation at the end of the day. So I would
mm.
say that acknowledge emotions, provide support, and then whatever resource that need to be provided should be done, and then show understanding. Don't just spit it out in their face. I mean, the organization is suffering. What do you want us to do? This is what we can do, and so take it and go. No. Once you do that, the interesting thing is that it's not even about the people who are going out. It's about those who will stay, because then they pick a queue and say that, oh, okay, so we this is how we're going to be treated if we are also going to go. So then you have,
Absolutely.
it will lead to so many things. Some will end up, they are present, but they are not really present because they are
Yeah.
busily looking for avenues and ways to, check out because they feel like this is an organization to give your all for. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of ripple effects from how you handle situations when they arise or crises when they arise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's quite detailed. Rara, thank
Yeah.
you so much. Um, she said we should acknowledge emotions, and that's
Yeah.
really key. Just imagine that there is going to be layoffs because as a business you are going through, for example, some restructuring. and then you just show up all of a sudden, you come in with some abrupt conversation, that will not go well. So it's important that, just like she said, you put the human face to this, because definitely in situations like this, um, there will be some people who will be affected, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
important that we note this. And the statements that these are adults, there's no need to you know they should take care of themselves and all of that at the workplace, and in our lives as human beings. I don't think it is so. Yes,
No,
we
not
are
at
adults, but
all.
emotions confront everyone. Emotions
Yeah.
confront everybody, and so we definitely have to help. And she spoke about providing out placement supports, and that's really key. Those that will be hard hit, it's important that you give them some supports. And I like the example you gave, the fact that you identify some of these people and then you provided some counseling sessions and all of that for them. I just imagine you are working with somebody, you have been in the space for about 10 years. This is someone you vibe with, you do everything with, and then suddenly the person has passed. You can't just be
Yeah.
laughing. You
No.
can't just show up at work and you are all excited. You definitely think. And so in situations like that, it's important that we get some support for some
Yes.
of these people.
I would just add to that that productivity would definitely dip. And the reason it would dip
Absolutely,
is because the same machine that swallowed their colleague, they still have to go and work with it. So how do I know
absolutely.
that whatever allowed made that machine swallow my colleague is not going to
Mm.
swallow me? So who wants to go? Nobody wants to go. And so until you
True.
come to a place where you have allayed those fears and you've put measures in place and it's clearly communicated that henceforth this is the steps we are going to take if anybody is approaching this machine.
Mm.
It may have been already there, but for supervisory lapse, something went wrong. Somebody was
Um,
not, doing the drills like you mentioned, as they should be doing every day before they start, and so
mm,
somebody just took
mm,
advantage, and then this is what we encountered. So clear communication, enforcing whatever policies are there, reviewing them, and making sure people understand them. And now they have seen the consequence, which is very fatal. Unfortunately, it means that people are going to take it a bit more seriously. But before we
mm,
get to that point where they get it more seriously and still have the desire to come to work and still approach the
mm,
same machine and produce, we have to
mm.
put in interventions to ensure they come to that point. So it's not about
Absolutely,
people being elderly. Yes.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Now we want to move to the next question that may confront people or people are already thinking about. Many organizations, for example, had not prepared for remote work during COVID. And so for many of them,
Kojo, if you
they
are
were
speaking, you may have to repeat yourself. Sorry.
okay. So can you hear me? Is it loud and clear? Can you hear me
Yes.
well? All right,
Yes.
great. Now we are going to be looking at um, the again using COVID as an example. During COVID, many organizations had to work remotely, you know, and many of them had not prepared for remote work. And so it became a challenge. Now, with the rise of remote work and digital platforms, how can we as HR professionals ensure continuity and support in virtual crisis, scenarios?
So yeah, it all boils down once again to having a policy in place and
Mm,
also communicating. So, with
mm,
the rise of all of this, HR is not an expert in all the functional areas. So, you cannot
mm,
do some of these things all by yourself. It means that you have to
absolutely.
rope in people like IT. IT
Yes.
have what you need to ensure that people can work remotely or from wherever
Mm,
that they
mm,
are. Beyond all of
mm.
these, you also may need logistics and then, excuse me, sorry.
All right, viewers, just a moment. But basically, Vera is speaking to the fact that you would need logistics to help with the remote, work. And I remember during COVID, one of the things that we did was that HR, while we were supporting with working from home through various interventions. Okay, Vera is back. Vera, let me allow you to proceed.
All right, so let me come in. I'll have my camera off for now. I have my little
That's okay.
officer
That's
here
okay.
who wants to be part of the meeting. So basically, as I was saying, you have to rope in other departments, and
Hmm.
some of the things we take for granted is that, yeah, people are working from home, but do they have the right do they have the right tools to work with, especially the
Hmm.
desk and the chair they are working with?
Yeah.
Is it even
Yeah.
supporting their back, so that tomorrow you are not having a legal case being brought against you that, yes, you wanted me to work from home, I'm working from home
Hmm.
now, I didn't have the chair, they've been sitting in their bed and they are they are working, and they enter into situations where you were not privy to. So these are some
Yeah.
of the questions that you probably want to have answered before you even grant people to be working from home. If it means going to inspect what they say they have, so be it, because you don't want paying large size of money to people because you took it for granted that they are adults and they know what to do. And so, with certain places, what I know is that even before you are granted work from home, you have to complete a form. And depending on how long you want to work from home and all of that, it would mean that different levels of members in the community leadership would have to sign off to ensure that we are aware that this person is working from home. And so we are also aware that
That's
everything is in place for the person to work with. So for business to continue, it covers a whole wide range of things: legal, it connects finances, it connects well-being of the employee and all of that. So you can't just allow people to be working from home and then not know how they are doing it or being remotely. Again, how do you monitor that work is actually being done? Once
hmm.
again, IT has to come in. So you know that
Yeah.
people are say they are working from home, and actually work is being done and delivery is being, they are delivering on their work as is expected. All of that means that you need to rope in other people to make sure that you have a very comprehensive work document you are working with,
Very
okay,
true.
to ensure business
Very true.
continuity. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vera. It means that the relevance of the digital space cannot be overemphasized. It is really key. Many organizations, I think now it is better. People have come to have a better appreciation of workplace trends and all of that. So working remotely is gaining ground. But when people are working from home, if you have put in place a better intervention to check their effectiveness, their performance, they would actually give you the result. And I remember that during COVID, I worked more than when I was at the office because there were no working hours. You wake up from your bed, you grab your laptop, you want to work. After five, you still reach out to your devices, you want to work. And like I said, I worked more than I was at the office. So employers and CEOs, managers don't feel that working remotely takes something from. There are so many benefits that you can actually explore, and so it's important that now that no crisis might have happened at your workplace, you explore all of these options um, as part of your running some of your tests, as part of your simulations, just so that when they happen, you know exactly what to do. Even for many churches where they had not piloted, virtual um, or using technology to support church, handling and all of that, there were so many challenges. So you can actually explore that option so that you
Mm.
prepare for crisis. Now we'll take maybe our last question, I think, our last question, and then if there are any questions from the chat box, we'll take that as well.
Right.
So, Vera, in your own experience, what has been the most challenging HR-led crisis, and how was it handled? Your own experience.
I've mentioned a few along the line, But I'll
Yeah.
mention this very one which borders on redundancy. And so
Hmm. Hmm.
um, we had to do redundancy. Yes, it was clear. But how do we go about it? And so as HR, it was to write a paper to present to guide management on how we go about it. Um, in the course of doing that, management decided to take to the stage and announce to employees that they are going to lay off. They are going to lay off, and you can
Wow.
imagine what that means. Um,
Wow.
at the end of the day, you have to go in and do crisis management, or how do you call it, damage control, because a lot of people were now really concerned for their livelihood, not knowing who was going to go and who is staying. Um, how is it even going to be? Because you and I know that before you even go on the tangent of having a redundancy, you need to involve the right authorities, write
Absolutely.
to them,
Absolutely.
and then make sure that you have some form of understanding and clearance. Do a lot of engagement before you go out there to even speak to employees. But this, they thought, oh, we can do this. After all, it is our work. We can bypass HR while she's still doing her paperwork and do what we had to do. At the end of the day, we lost some of our very good hands because they were not going to stay there for you to play with their lives. And so,
Hmm.
what happens in such situation is that unfortunately, it is your good hands you will lose, not those ones you actually would love to be the ones you would let go. It is
Hmm.
those who know what they want to do with their career and where they are going. They are the ones who
Hmm.
jump ship very quickly. And of course, they are the ones who also have a great prospect out there. And so if they started searching, they are likely to, have another opportunity out there. So, once HR was not given the opportunity to lead the process, it turned into a crisis, whereas it could have been avoided. It was a crisis that could
Hmm.
have been avoided. Yes. So these
Hmm.
are some of the things that we would want to um, ask our business owners and top management, that they should allow HR to do what it knows to do to help the
Hmm.
business to avoid some of these situations for
Yeah.
business continuity, and also to ensure
Absolutely.
that employees are always encouraged and their morale are not put down to feel that they don't mean much to the organization, because sometimes
Absolutely.
these actions, that is what it communicates to employees, that they don't
Hmm.
really mean much,
Hmm.
and that they can be let go anyway, anyhow, without
Hmm.
any considerations for how they feel and how it will impact them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vera. You have shared a lot today. We have actually we've taken so much from you, and we want to thank you so much for all the insights you have shared with us today. We'll take a breather, and when we come back, you share your final words with us. Now, you are connected and you want to know more about CDAT and what CDAT does. So, CDAT is into HR support, advisory, outsourcing, talent acquisition and management, staff outsourcing, compensation and benefits management. So that is into employee engagement, training and development, payroll outsourcing, recruitment and executive search, event management, assurance services. I mean, you can name it. The list is endless. So reach out to Sedat for any of these services, and they will handle it excellently for you. There is an upcoming training program on building a competitive grading system and salary structure. It's actually a 2-day program, and this program seeks to target heads of HR departments, HR directors, HR managers, HR officers, payroll officers, compensation and benefits officers, and SME owners. It includes supervisors and managers who make regular pay decisions. And so you don't want to miss this particular training program. You need to register for the program. You need to be a part of it. It's happening on 22nd to 23rd May this year. And we are already in May. It's happening this month. 22nd to 24th. And it's important that you register for this particular training program. You can reach set that on 0244 You can also reach set that on 0591405555, and set that will do justice to your requests and also for this particular training program. There are some few partnerships that I also want to bring your attention to. So Sedat and Revere, they have a partnership, and we call this partnership Sedat Care. So HR, we talk about well-being. We talk about well-being. We are not just interested in work. We are interested in your well-being as well. So Sedat has introduced Sedat Care in partnership with Revere, and um, what this particular services seek to do is that we provide a lot of services in the health space. If you sign up with just 360 Ghana cedis for a whole year, you get to have some of the following: unlimited free virtual care, 4 free in-person consultations, up to 15% off medications and labs, access to personal care team, monthly health insights, virtual mental health consultations and support, priority referrals in Revere Network, personalized health profiles, remote health monitoring and alerts, and free health workshops and screening. So these are so many of the things that we bring your way as you sign up for this particular policy. There are add-ons as well, including free labs. If you contribute up to 60 cedis every month, you get to have a cap of 400 cedis per your visit. That's 5,000 cedis per year. You also enjoy up to 15% off lab tests after exceeding your coverage limits. There are free medications. If you contribute 80 cedis every month, um, it is capped at 500 cedis. I mean, in terms of benefit per visit, and that is 7,000 Ghana cedis in the year. You also get to enjoy 15% off medications after exceeding this coverage limits. Now, for your dependents, if you contribute only 20 cedis every month, in terms of benefits, it is the same as you see as we spoke about. So reach out to Sedat on Sedat Care, and you get to have a whole host of benefits, services come your way for purposes of your well-being, not only you but for your dependents as well. Sedat has also partnered with People's HR. Sedat has partnered with People's HR, and basically in the space of HR technology. So there is an HR information system that seeks to address all your administrative, activities. So reach out to Sedat on this particular tool that Sedat has brought our way, in partnership with People's HR and Global Frontiers. Some of the things that you get to have from this particular information system is that you'll be able to have smarter interview analysis. You hire very fast, very quickly. There is an AI chatbot for HR support. You can use the same to predict employee turnover, and it helps you basically to make better HR decisions with data. So reach out to Sedat, and you'll be excited that you actually did. Now, the final one that I want to speak about again is the program that is upcoming. I actually want to re-echo it from 22nd to 23rd. All right. Thank you so much for joining our viewers. Thank you so much. I want to take the final words from our resource person, Vera. So, Vera, if you can share your final words with us, your final words, your final words.
Right. Thank you, Kojo. I would say that as HR professionals, let's know what is expected of us. Let's have a policy in place for some of these things, broadly defining what it's for, the scope, what a crisis means to your organization, and then have a team, available who are trained and who know what to do when a crisis hits. So don't be found wanting, be proactive, and let's make the workplace a safe place to be. So that's what I would say to our cherished listeners who are HR professionals. I also say to our business owners, please allow HR to support the business and to help the business continue to grow. Allow them to do what they know how to do best and give them the opportunity. If there's a skills gap somewhere, it's not lost. There's so much training going on. Said that Consult is a place to come to. They'll get professional advice and help to know what to do so that you avoid some of this crisis in workplaces as much as possible. Thank you.
I would say that crisis management is a proactive action. Um, it is not reactive. Begin the process before it happens. Have interventions put in place before it happens, so that when it happens, all you need to do is to go into implementation, and that will help a lot. Now, that
Yeah.
said, we want to thank Sedat Consult so much for again creating the platform for all professionals to connect every Sunday for conversations like this, HR's role in crisis management. We also want to thank our cherished viewers, participants for always joining us every Sunday, every weekend for this conversation. Again, I want to thank the ICT team for your support. Thank you, everyone. Until we meet again, it is bye bye for now. Thank you, Vera.
Thank you, Kojo, and thank you to your listeners.